Okay, I've turned the camera back on here on this last interior cut. I thought I'd go ahead and show you the second method for beginning and ending a cut inside a curve like this. And again, the way I showed you before was to come into it and then just follow the circle around. And what I'm going to do this time is actually come in at the wall of this curve at a 90-degree angle. And when I get there, then I'll spin the wood to come back down and line up with that cut. So it looks something like this. Bring the blade in so it just touches that wood, and then just spin the piece. Just that simple. And then if you go ahead and follow the cut around, and you come back to the beginning of that cut again, all you have to do is line the blade up exactly with that line where you began, and you should have a fairly transition-free cut. And in that case, maybe a little better. I'm still going to sand it off with the side of my blade there a little bit to get it a little smoother. But with a little practice on that technique, you can get pretty smooth cuts on a curve. Okay, I've finished all the interior cuts now, and I want to go ahead and get started on the outside of this project. And just want to talk about a couple things here real quick. The first would be that I tend to cut in a counterclockwise direction. I've heard different theories about the right way to do it, but it's just the way I do it, so I can't tell you if that's right or wrong, but it's the way I've always done it. Again, you got the same situation when you begin a cut. Now I go ahead and make an interior cut or an interior or entry drill hole, even though it's on the exterior. I'll make one because I don't want to come in from the edge of the wood. It tends to take away the integrity of the piece of wood, and it doesn't hold together as well. So I'll go ahead and start on the interior, even on the exterior cut. And I think that's important. And another thing to mention is the reason you do these interior cuts first, all these little small cuts, is because it leaves the outside of the wood for you to hold on to while you're making those cuts. If I'd have cut around the outside first, then all I would have had was these little pieces to hold on to while I was trying to cut out the interior. So that's why that's done that way. So I'm going to go ahead and begin this cut, and as I'm cutting, there's a couple things I want to show you. Well, one thing that would be handy to show you right now, maybe off here on an exterior piece, if you had, let me zoom in on this and get real close. That's something that's fairly important. I want to see if you can see it here real good. Let's say we had a pattern out here that actually had a sharp point. I'm not going to be able to draw on this very well. But let's say we had a real sharp point out here, and we wanted to keep that point sharp as we cut it. If I started this cut and went out this way, and then tried to turn the blade to come back down on that cut to keep that sharp point, I'm going to get a little bit of a rounded cut there because it's so difficult to actually turn that wood fast enough. So if you know you absolutely have to have a perfectly sharp point there, what you can do, and I'll do the same thing, what you can do is come out and actually make a loop and go back on the end of that point. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let's say the pattern that I'm getting ready to cut comes out this way, and that's the point that we want to keep very sharp right there. What I'll do is I'll make the cut, I'll go ahead and continue to cut out this way, make a loop and come back in, and that way we'll have a perfectly sharp point. Now in this pattern all the edges are pretty rounded, so it's not going to matter. But if I bring this out, and say I'm at the edge of that point, I can go ahead and just keep cutting out into the waist area, bring it back in like this, and now when I come back on that same point, I've got a perfectly sharp point. I've got a perfectly sharp point now right there. So as long as you've got some waist area that you can go out in here and cut, you can come back and make your points very sharp. Now in this pattern we have just all rounded edges, so we're not going to run into that too much. But you might get into it in an area like this right here. If you came down and you had a fairly sharp point right here on this interior right here, you could come down and nibble some of this away and then bring your blade back down into here, turn the piece with the nibbled out area that you did and bring it back out. Okay, let's go ahead and begin some of this cut. When you're cutting, just try to be confident. Don't apply too much pressure to the wood as you're cutting. You want to hold it down well enough that it don't jump on you like you saw it do when I first started cutting here. I didn't have a good enough hold on the wood when I started the saw up with my foot switch, so I lost control of it a little bit. And you can pinch your fingers pretty badly doing that, so you want to avoid it if you can. But once you get cutting, just kind of get yourself into a groove, apply enough pressure down on the wood that it's not jumping up and down on you, but not so much that your fingers are getting tired either. And again, you can see that most of the time while I'm cutting here, I'm actually using one hand as a pivot point and another hand to actually guide the wood. I'm doing a really bad job cutting this pattern, but I'm not trying to talk and cut at the same time. I'm not very good at that, I guess. But anyway, just go ahead and follow the outlines. And here's a situation where what I was talking about, we have a little bit of a V here that we're coming to. Right here where this S and this E go together. And that's one place where you might be able to use the technique I was talking about. If you really wanted to make sure that that was a nice crisp turn right there, what you could do is go ahead and come into that area. And then if you needed to, back your blade up, go over into your waist area, come and cut back down in, cut that piece out. Then you can stop the saw and actually turn the blade and get it back into the, the angle that you want to start cutting at. So then when you come out of there, you're going to have a perfectly sharp turn point there. And again, in this piece, that's not necessary. These nameplates are, you don't have to stay right on the line. As long as you're doing a smooth cut, if you go off the pattern a little bit like I did right there, nobody's going to notice it. So don't beat yourself up trying to stay exactly on the pattern on this type of work, because it's really not necessary. Once you get it cut out, nobody will ever notice it. Probably the biggest thing when you're just getting started is just get over the initial tension you have between yourself and the saw and wanting to overdo everything by holding it too tight. Or I've even seen people that don't breathe when they cut. They actually stop breathing. Don't do that. That's not good. Just relax, and once you get used to it and realize that the saw is not going to hurt you, well, hopefully it won't hurt you. You need to be careful, but then as you relax a little bit, the cutting gets more enjoyable. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off right now and finish this interior cut, and then come back on and we'll talk about how to finish this up.